Question 5 reads, which one of the following must be true about any acceptable product code? So now this question seems most similar to the question 2 that we had, because we're not given any additional information, and this question is of the form, which of the following must be true? So let's think about the answer choices. The answer choices are A, there is exactly one digit between the digit 0 and the digit 1. B, there is exactly one digit between the digit 1 and the digit 2. C, there are at most 2 digits between the digit 1 and the digit 3. D, there are at most 2 digits between the digit 2 and the digit 3. Or E, there are at most 2 digits between the digit 2 and the digit 4. So again, this seems way more open-ended than the other questions, both because of the way the answer choices are structured and also because we're not given any additional information with which to answer the question. So we want to think about, if we look at our possibilities here, is there anything that jumps out that matches with any of the answer choices? And from what we see here, it's not entirely clear. So what we're probably going to have to do is examine this proof by contradiction structure again. In order to effectively utilize the proof by contradiction strategy, you have to be able to, in some coherent way, actually come up with the opposite of each of the answer choices. So for example, if you look at choice A, it says there is exactly one digit between the digit 0 and the digit 1. Well, to show that that must be true, you're going to have to show that there can't be 2 digits between 0 and 1, and that there can't be 3 digits between 0 and 1, and that there can't be 0 digits between 0 and 1. That seems like kind of a pain. So in terms of test strategy, that's not where you want to start with an answer choice, and the vast majority of the time, that's not what the LSAT test makers are looking for you to go towards as an answer choice either. You'll notice that choice B has the same sort of issue. Choice B says there is exactly one digit between the digit 1 and the digit 2, so you're going to have to rule out 3 other options in order to show yourself that that has to be true. On the other hand, take a look at answer choices C through E, which share a different structure. Choice C says, for example, there are at most 2 digits between the digit 1 and the digit 3. Well, you can show that there are at most 2 by showing that there can't be 3 or more. Well, because there's only 5 slots, the maximum number of digits that there can be between is 3. So all we really have to rule out is that having 3 digits between digit 1 and digit 3 is not an option. So we can do that for choices C, D, and E, and let's see what we come up with in terms of a structure. So you'll notice with our proof by contradiction, if we're trying to show that there are at most 2 digits in between 2 others, we're trying to show that having 3 digits between doesn't work. So I've set up a little structure here for each choice to say, well, if we're having 3 digits in between, the only way that that can happen is for the 2 numbers in question to act as bookends. And we'll go through each of the answer choices and see whether we can further narrow down what constitutes an acceptable product code to see which ones of these we can rule out. So let's take choice C. If we're looking to see whether 1 and 3 could be bookends, we'll notice here that we can be more specific because we know that 3 can't be first. So we know that if we're going to have these guys be on the ends, that this is going to have to be the 1, and that this is going to have to be the 3. Well, we know from our rules then that if the first digit is 1, the second one has to be 2. And we're left with the 0 and the 4 to place. We know that the third digit has to be less than the 5th digit, so we can't have this be the 4. So we have to have a situation that looks like this. But we do come up with a scenario where there are more than 2 digits between the digit 1 and the digit 3 that satisfies all the rules. So we can say that it does not have to be true that there are at most 2 digits between 1 and 3. And we can rule this out as an answer choice. So let's look at the next one. if the bookends that we're looking to place are now 2 and 3, we can make the same deduction that we did in choice C and say, well, we know that 3 can't be first. So our bookends are going to have to look like this. I know that if I place a 2 in position 1, that I have to place a 4 in position 2, which then leaves the 0 and the 1 to be placed here. We actually can't tell which one goes where, because either one of them would satisfy this rule. But we don't need to worry about that. We can let it go and say, I think that this works, so I'm not looking for this to be my answer choice. Let me examine this and only come back to choices D, B, and A if I don't find what I'm looking for. So let's look at choice E. If I'm trying to put my bookends as 2 and 4, I notice here that I can't have 4 as my first digit, so I know that the situation has to look like this. And then just by applying the rules, I can say, okay, if the first digit is 2, then the second digit has to be 4. But wait a minute, I already placed the 4. I can't use him again. So this one actually reaches a contradiction in that I can't have my 2 and my 4 as bookends. So I can't have them 3 digits apart. Therefore, it must be true that there are at most 2 digits between the digit 2 and the digit 4. So this is in fact the answer choice. And you'll note that the initial intuition was right and that I don't even have to look at these two, because I didn't want to look at them since it was too complicated to think about what the contradiction would be, and it turns out that I don't have to. But if you went down this path and insisted on looking at the first 2 answer choices before the last 3, you would end up wasting a lot of time. There are a few things to notice about this game. The first is that when you have a structured approach regarding how to think about any particular question, and you're not afraid to write things down and to have it there for you to look at, to play with, to not have to do everything in your head, the games seem a lot easier than they would otherwise. Along those same lines, if you allow yourself to think in terms of individual steps rather than letting the deductions snowball and trying to think about them all at once, the problems seem a lot simpler. So the more that you can compartmentalize your thinking and do one thing at a time, write things down, make yourself comfortable, you'll be able to go through the logic games more quickly, more accurately, and without getting tired or giving yourself a headache, which would then impede performance for the rest of the test.